Too many times I've run into a situation where something I'm doing or something I'm saying triggers a phenomenon that I should tell everybody that nobody's alone in this. This is very widespread. Um, and while I haven't gone specifically made a point to look at other people's research on it or really called it anything, the dynamics of it I've really had to face my entire life. And it's something that has really actually marked millennials. Uh, to me, it looks like more than most. And that is when you are doing or saying something that basically you're parking in a reserved spot for a character or a figure that they have in their mind. Um, and then they are trying to correcting you based on what is going on in their own head. Like, um, this is one of the biggest ones I've gotten. And, for me, things are very literal in my mind. And by nature, I am, everything is theory. And if someone says something, I have to try to prove it and disprove it in my mind and look at it at different angles, see where its boundaries are. It's just something my head does. It just does it. You say something, my head is just working on it. It's like dropping ink into a pool of water. It just spreads, and I'm working on it. So when I was in junior high, this is when this has started. Um, they found out I was autistic when I was in kindergarten. This whole concept of autism was like a real lot different back in 1990, and my parents didn't want me to be autistic. They just said I wasn't. Told me I wasn't. That was like the end of it. And it didn't mean anything to me back then, other than the fact that I don't have to be in this baby school. So I was really excited about the school, specifically because for the moment I stepped into that class, they were doing things that I had learned years ago, and I had moved very far away from what they're doing, and they're not treating me well. They scare me. They're chanting songs about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, peanuts and jelly, and peanuts and jelly. And the commotion really scared me. The way everybody appears and the energy in the room, it's terrifying. And I went and told one of the teachers. I got up out of the middle of the chant, and I tugged on her dress and I said, "Hey, I think I'm in the wrong class. I think I'm in the baby class." And then she sat me down on the floor. She grabbed me by my arm, which was very hard for me. People touching me, because I felt like I'm disappearing when people touch me. And they do it forcefully, and it's like they're forcing themselves inside me and dividing my consciousness, and that was scary. And she forced me back down on the floor to sit Indian style, and then she starts moving my arms for me in this cult-like fashion to sing peanuts and jelly. So it was just terrifying and overwhelming for me. And but I had to do it anyway. Um, you know, my mom said, if you don't go to school, they'll throw me in jail. So here I'm at school doing this, and I was wilting the entire time. And then I started getting crazy, which is really funny because, I don't think that autism and ADHD are two different things. I know that neurologically things can be manifested in a lot of ways, but they try to define it by sensory avoider or sensory seeker. I think that it's the same thing, because I was a strong sensory avoider, but when I was by myself, I'm just very into what I'm doing, action figures and Legos, and building Lincoln Logs and things. Just very into that, and very imaginative, and Peter Pan and stuff. But simultaneously, the world's like just this very big and scary place, and um, uh, it was just very overwhelming. Everything coming at me at one time, but they forced it on me. They forced everything on me again and again. Adults are just very forceful people, forceful, accusing, belligerent people that have this very superior attitude. I'm telling you how I perceived it then, which I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. Is That's how they are, and adults may possibly still feel entitled that they get to treat kids like this. It's horrible. It's very hard being a kid because of these worldviews from the people around you, and they accuse you, and they think that their word is absolute when they're completely wrong. So, I'm just being forced around in this world, tugged around, pushed around, accused, belittled. You have different things going on between adults and their social factions and crap. And then they retaliate against my parents on me. It's just this very hard world to deal with. So here I am. I'm very autistic going through the public school system. I agree that I should not have been in the public school system. I don't regret meeting the people I met. I really love everyone, so it's hard to have like any specific regrets other than just repenting. But as far as like my opinion, no, I shouldn't be in the public school system. My needs weren't met. They know what they're talking about. So I come off very different to people when I was going through school. I didn't know. I think everybody's like me. I don't know. It's just a short conversation. Someone said he may be autistic, and my mom was like, no, he's not. And I go, I'm very autistic. And she goes, no, you're saying you're artistic. Well, that's right. That's what I was saying. But she also told me I wasn't autistic. But so like my experience is, I think everybody's like me, and I'm coming on very different to everybody else, and I have to maintain a center in order to survive out here in this chaos. It's like basically meditating all the time. I'm maintaining a center, right? And I'm constantly pushing back against everything that's pushing on me. And everything I do is calculated, basically. Wasn't making very good decisions as a teenager. Unfortunately, that kind of puts me in like, oh, so you knew what you're doing. Does anyone know what they're doing? But everything's very calculated, and I don't. I'm just want to make friends, but they've made a thing out of me already. So, and I'm not like a part of the conversation, that whatever leads them to have these things that they do, I'm just facing my reality, and I don't know what it is. People just act very strange, and I don't know like what is going on. I'm not a part of it. And they started coming up to me and they started saying, he thinks he's God. He thinks he's God. He thinks he's God. And like, I don't like know, like I don't know what this is. First of all, I grew up in a cult called the Worldwide Church of God. I knew nothing about Jesus or anything like that. I know the Old Testament. That's what I know, right? And what they have basically done is put me on trial inside of myself. Like, I'm on trial now of overthinking my crime is that I think I'm God. And my head is like just moving, right? The first time that happened, it was so strange and disconnected from anything scary. I just kind of let go of it. Then one time, there were two girls walking down the street. One of them looked like my sister. To this day, I don't know if that was my sister. It may have been my sister. But they looked like young girls. Way too young for this guy. And this guy had his arm around each one of them walking down the street. And I knew who this guy was. He's kind of butthole, you know, kind of a butthole character in our neighborhood. Um, but I did drugs. My friends do drugs. We go hang out at parties. We're involved in adult worlds often. It's just like, where do I come in? Exactly, right? But I was going to come in because it looks like it looks like one of them was my sister, and he has his arm around two very young girls that are not even 18 yet. And so I was stepped towards that direction in my very still autistic calculating way. And he turns around and looks at me and goes, I don't like that guy. He thinks he's God. And then the girl turned around to me, and she looked like my sister. She had this look like, huh. And then I'm like, it is so terrifying what you are saying. You don't understand how my mind works. I can't just it's this massive explosion of things and space and the universe and mechanics, and you're like, I don't need this. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. So that stopped me. Obviously, I'm right now. I'm in a trance because of what he just said to me. And this girl that looks like my sister turns around. She's like, "Why do you think you're God?" Kind of look on her face. And I'm like, just standing there, and I don't know what to do. If I should go pursue them, see if that's my sister. If I should figure out what I'm doing wrong. So now I'm on trial. I really now I am on trial inside myself. And then when I came to Christ, I started being around a lot of very holy people that pray all the time and bless people that curse you and do a lot of really good things. And it's just this presence about them and me. And I was going to a Pentecostal church, and I was absorbing all of this, right? And it just felt so good. It just felt so great. My mind is free, and I'm happy. And I bring that back to people. And I have some really intense things going on inside me because, for one, my brain doesn't work normally anyway. And I'm around these very big, very real concepts, very real spiritual things happening. And so, I've changed in enormous ways. And I'm sitting with people, and someone turns to me and goes, "You're not God, Adam." And they do it again. They do this again. I'm not, I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it. That's terrifying. You're going to be stoned, and it's and I'm not going to be stoned, but that's what happens. It's a very serious, and so that basically this occurrence over and over and over again, 4 times that happened at least. My brain's just working on the problem now. Do I think I'm God? Now it's just for years, it was a decade. If you look at photographs of me at my friend Kelly's prom, and throughout the years, I'm just sitting there staring, with just this distant look. It's because I'm autistic, and people keep accusing me that I think I'm God, and I'm working on the problem. I'm on trial for a decade, working on this massive problem for a decade. But I didn't have that problem. I don't think it's just outside of my scope of how I think. I would never just sit there and wonder, am I God? No. But this is coming from somewhere, and you can either be offended by what people are doing to you. Well, you can do a lot of things what people are doing to you. One of them is you could be offended, because that's a big one. That's miserable, because that's one that people do quite often, is that they're offended. You could also learn about people from what they're doing. It's not you, right? It's not you. What's interesting is this, that it's coming from somewhere. It may not even necessarily be them, although a lot of times, because of the way people take the least path of resistance, they typically are judging others how they're judged inside themselves. And so, I'm constantly, it's not the only one that I've triggered. You know, um, uh, there are other characters. There are characters that people try to actually determine whether or not it's kind of like their destiny to be. Their destiny to be this character in the Bible, like Elijah. They're destined to be Michael. They're destined to be. They're actually Ezekiel. Their secret thing is that they're actually Ezekiel. This is very widespread, like very widespread. So, if you're gonna don't feel like guilt or extreme judgment, because it's extremely, extremely widespread. You don't actually know these people. Like, you don't know Elijah. You definitely don't know Michael. There's like nothing on Michael. There's a few words and a few things that said he's going to do. Now, I do want to interject here. I don't know anything about angels. Like, I don't know anything about this stuff, right? I don't have anything to like go off of, even though it could be present. I just haven't looked hard enough to see, who are the angels? Who are these people? These men that show up? I don't know, right? So, but like, I really question whether other people have any more than I do. I don't think they do. I think that they have these stories and these imagery, like the Archangel Michael and the devil fighting with swords, and it's a man with black wings and a man with white wings. What is that going to do, man? Like, is this actually what you're expecting? You're expecting like the battle of the last days? You have a bunch of good angels with swords and a bunch of dark angels with swords. What is fighting with swords going to do? Things are so much more bigger in reality to solve problems than sword fighting can do anything with, right? So, you don't know these people. You don't know these angels, but what I was saying was that, there's a possibility that if these figures are real, they're integrated into our society as a normal functioning help, and we do know them inside of ourselves, but we know them as kind of like the framework, right? We don't really know them as like a person. We know them as a framework that we're kind of living off of. So there's a possibility that Elijah and Michael as within you as a framework, right? But as far as like actually identifying, they don't know Michael or Elijah any more than Superman or Spider-Man. And that people are doing the same thing with this, the same thing they do with Superman, Spider-Man. They're saying like, a lot of pastors, unfortunately, do this "I'm Elijah" thing, and they're their destiny, and it's they have a construct in their mind. They have a character, right? An image that they have formed, and now they're trying to like basically step into it, like putting on a suit. Now they're in their Elijah suit, right? And they have body language and things that they say and scope of things that will do. Well, who's Elijah? Elijah is a guy that, he sits on a hill and brings fire down from heaven, right? So Elijah is allowed to kill people. This is where things get really complicated. You're saying you're Christians. You're saying that you're following Jesus, right? Jesus said, "Bless those that curse you," right? But if you think you're Elijah and you don't know Elijah, and you have this scope of, and even if you did know Elijah, that's like knowing Elijah. That's not being Elijah, that's knowing Elijah, right? If you were Elijah, you're just existing as you, and the best you can be, more and more every day, and you just happen to be Elijah, right? You're not thinking like, okay, I gotta step into the, Elijah suit. That's just who you are, right? So the problem is that within this Elijah costume, you are now deciding who lives and who dies. You believe that you're superior enough to decide who lives and who dies. You might bring fire from heaven. We might be cursed. A lot of things that we could do. a lot of things where you're not actually following Jesus. You're not doing what Jesus said. You're being Elijah, right? So this is a serious problem that people have, and it's an extremely widespread problem. And it's a mental illness. Don't be confused. This is a mental illness, and it needs to be treated. You need to be you, and you isn't one image that you can form in your mind. It's a lot of things, and really what you just need to kind of exist, and you need to focus on what you should be doing. And this is part two. Part two of this conversation is that you don't need to be reserving things that are good for you to do, that you know are good for you to do for these characters. Being in this constant argument in your mind, constantly on trial. Well, I can't do all these mathematical things on society that I'm helping everybody's life because that's Elijah's job. I'm not Elijah. Wait a minute. You know what Elijah's job is? Well, why don't you go ahead and do that job? Just do it. As long as it's a good thing to do, as long as it's proven to be good behaviors that are constructive for every living thing, go ahead and do it. Don't wait around for someone else to come. If you know that there's something good to do, and it's helpful for everybody, do it. And, maybe you are. But you can't think of it like that. You can, but it's very harmful to think of it like that. God wants you to do good things that you know to do. You need to go ahead and do them. And not be on trial inside of yourself about who they're supposed to be for. All right. And that's the end of this conversation. Thank you.